Has it started? It started! Okay, hey everyone, welcome to this hyperstream for GCSE English Language Paper 1, which will be coming up tomorrow. Good luck, I hope you guys are all feeling all right about it. For those of you who are new or haven't been to one of these live streams before, I'm Jono from Seneca. Don't know who that guy is, but he probably will keep walking past because people just walk past this window. And today we are going to be going over some last minute tips and tricks with the exam. It's going to be super fun. We're going to go over the different questions you can expect to see. People have been asking about like how much time they should be spending on each question, so I'll talk a little bit about that. Oh, I'm glad people know. Yes, I got the gong. I got the gong. So that is our Seneca gong. And basically, it's a cute little gong. When you get a question right, boom, I hit the gong. It irritates everyone in the surrounding office, so that's always fun. It makes lunchtime really great. Yes, gong gang, welcome everybody, ding, ding, ding. So thank you for joining this episode. Sorry I was a bit late. I was doing a chemistry one before, and then I had to get a drink. So this will mainly be for, the exam board is probably going to be for AQA. It's going to be mainly AQA, but the writing techniques we'll go over will be relevant for all the exam boards. So how are we going to, people are asking to go over question 4, tips and tricks for that. So keep your requests coming in and letting me know what you want to go over. So we're going to start by going over some stuff for, we're going to go over the different types of questions that you can expect to see in your English language paper. So all of our courses, they're written by senior examiners, so I am just a messenger. So I will be sharing the tips with you and going over them. Now, people are asking for question 3 and question 4, so that is what we're going to go over. And then we'll do some advice for the creative writing, talk about the techniques that you need to go over, just so everyone can feel nice and neat. Now, my face has disappeared, which is, to be fair, not necessarily a bad thing, but I'll bring it back. And you'll see like a cute little countdown. It'll be great. Okay, Jono's back. So let's start with question 3. Well, we got time. We got half an hour. Let's start with question 1, tips and tricks, very quickly. So what's nice about this paper is it does follow like the same structure every time. Now there's so many texts they can pick, it's hard to kind of predict what text they're going to choose, but you can go in knowing exactly what's going to cover. So section A is going to be the creative reading, and you'll be given a extract from a literary text, and it's normally going to be unseen. Now the first question is quite nice because you just have to state like 4 things that happen. Okay, so you don't need to think too much, and you need to find the information in the specified line reference, okay? They'll give you a reference and they'll say between lines 8 and 12, describe 4 things that happen, or describe 4 changes in the weather, or something like that. So you just need to state 4 things, 4 marks, easy. Don't want to be spending more than 5 minutes on a question 1, okay? So next, chronologically, we move on to question 2. Now, question 2, again, it's worth 8 marks, and it's going to be, you want to be spending about 3 minutes reading and 10 minutes writing. And you'll be, again, it's a specific section of the text, and it will explain how the writer uses language to describe a character, thing, place, or event. Someone just asked about question 1, do you bullet point? It's an English paper. I would try and avoid writing in bullet points where you can. Try and write in sentences. Just because it sets a good impression, you know. So this was a question specifically about language. So you want to be using the correct terminology, okay? And you need to show that you can identify the techniques used by the writer. This is where you get your marks in question 2. Is there some personification going on? Is there a simile? Is there a metaphor? Any kind of technique like that? Is there irony, tone, emphasis, use of rhetorical questions, okay? All those kind of things are the things you want to be commenting on for question 2, okay? So make sure you use technical words. You want to use varied information from the text. Make sure you include quotations. You cannot get full marks if you don't use quotations. And again, you want to be using that point evidence structure to structure your paragraphs. Don't just use any quotation. Choose a quotation to match your point exactly. And then again, Peel, structure, point, evidence, example, link it back to the question. How is the writer using language, okay? You're going to be analyzing that language, and you should explain how the language used helps to describe whatever character, thing, place, or event the question asks about. So think about connotations. Think about the effect of language technique you've highlighted. Don't just label the technique. Nuh-uh, we're not labeling techniques up in here. You're not going to mark by saying the writer uses personification. You've got to explain how the language used is describing the character, thing, event, or whatever is taking place, okay? So don't just name the technique, describe and explain its effect. So again, this would be an example question. How does the writer use language in this extract to create tension? So you're going to think, what is tension? How does it make the reader feel? Throughout your answer, stick to the question. Again, use that structure to, at the end of whatever point you're making, link it back to the question. Like, what is the tension? How is the technique building tension? Maybe there's a nice little simile. Maybe there's like an extended metaphor that creates tension. So all about those language techniques. In terms of how many paragraphs of this question, I would say you want to be writing, it's 8 marks. And I would say you want to make 4 good points, and aiming for 2 points per mark. So I'd say 4 short-ish paragraphs with a point being made in each. Okay, so now we're getting to question 3, which people were hyped up about. Halfway through the different types of questions you can expect in section A, so that gets a little bit of a gong. Great question, Jersey student. Yes, you do want to talk about how the reader feels. So you start your paragraphs with sentences like, the writer uses this technique to blah, 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 blah. This could make the reader feel tension because of blah, 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 blah. Don't write the blah, 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 blah. But you know, you get the gist. You want to be talking like, the writer does this and this has this impact on the reader. Those are the kind of words you want to be using. In terms of, let's see if for the request for some sample answers, if you look at, we did a predicted paper live stream last week, and that we went over some example answers in that, so have a check on that. So question 3, what's going to be happening in question 3? Well, again, it's another 8 marker. Now, question 2 is all about language. But when we're talking to question 3, we're talking about structure. You have to talk about structure in the question. Yes, these are normally about 30 minutes, so I'll spend about 15 minutes going over questions 1 to 4 and 15 minutes on the last one. So in terms of how to answer the question, for question 3, you need to talk about structure. Don't mention language points, so stuff like personification, metaphor, similes. You need to mention in question 2. Question 3, we are all about that structure. Again, use varied information from the text and analyze focusing on structure. So it could be, there could be a circular narrative. It could start and end at the same place. There's normally, the key thing to look for in these texts is normally there's a transition point somewhere in the text. So there's a change in tone, things go from happy to sad, something like that. You need to talk about the structure, not the language. Again, you want to select quotations and explain why it has used that particular quotation. So start your paragraph with, the writer employs this structural technique, then give your example and your evidence, and then link it back to the structure. So that's how you want to be structuring your paragraphs. It's an 8-mark question. So you want to be making 4 good points, so 4 shortish paragraphs to get your 8 marks, okay? So to get top marks, you need to be original, showing that you're thinking outside the box and picking up the small details in the text. So even if you don't think something is that important or it's not super noticeable, still talk about it. That's what that examiner is going to be looking for, okay? So again, question 3, remember, we're looking at the structure of the text. That's what we want to be looking at, okay? So next we're going to question 4. Now, question 4 is, we get a little bit longer, okay? So what can you expect on question 4? Well, question 4 is worth 20 marks. So you need to spend about 5 minutes reading and 20 minutes writing. And it's an evaluation question. So you need to focus on a particular section of the source and respond to a statement. And you're basically being asked to explain if you agree with a statement and why you think that, okay? So Again, this is AQA specific. They've said that students are allowed to agree, disagree, or disagree partially with the statement. But bear in mind, disagreeing completely with a statement is much harder to do successfully. It's much easier to partially agree and disagree. And you need to give your own opinions in this question. It's asking what you think, so don't be afraid to share your ideas. Okay, really important for this question. And don't be afraid to say your opinion, say your voice, how you feeling, what's going on. That's how you're going to be getting the top marks in question 4. You need to critically evaluate. So you should focus on the statement and make a judgment on how effective the writer has been. So use evaluation phrases and make a clear judgment based on the statement you've been given. Don't be afraid to offer counter arguments. So when you're evaluating something, be like, I think this. However, some may think that, some may think this. However, they are wrong because of this. You know, like boss up, like try and sell your opinion. Offer counter arguments. Use discourse markers to structure your argument, and that is what you want. Okay, so. Using varied information about the text, so just like in the other ones, carefully select quotations, and again, point evidence and then link it back to that question, okay? So make sure the quotations match your point. So to get a critical response, you should explain whether the writer's choice of language approach is effective, making clear links to the statement, select a quotation that links to it, and then explain why the writer chose that particular method. So start the paragraph with the writer chose to use this particular method to have this effect on the reader. That's a really good way to be structuring your paragraphs and answers, okay? So to get the top marks, again, you need to be original, think outside the box. Same with question 3, come up with some original ideas. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. That's what language is, an art after all. So you don't need to, you can like paint with all the colors in the crayon box. Okay, so that was a very quick run through of what you can expect for questions 1 to 4. In the live stream we did last week, we went over some predictive, like some past papers and how to structure answers and that kind of thing. So I think the link is in the description. So if you want to watch that video, we also go over a top level answer for section B in full, so you can have an idea of how to do descriptive writing. Okay, so breathe. How is everybody feeling? Anyone else leave? Good luck for tomorrow. We're going to go over now section B. We're going to go over some, that's weird. We're going to go over section B, which is your creative writing task, okay? So we're starting question 5 is the best question. It's so much fun. And we're going to go over some techniques to begin with. So descriptive writing, you need to use sensory detail to describe a place, person, or feeling, okay? So that's what descriptive writing is. And so many GIFs. Oh my God, that's a lot of GIFs to deal with. So I don't know why it keeps like multiplying my face. Can you see that when I like move the little screen? So what are the tips and tricks for descriptive writing techniques? Now we're going to go over some descriptive writing techniques that you can use in your answer. Now you're normally given like a picture in your answer to provide a response in it. So when you're planning your answer, I plan it in and have 2 kind of like thoughts about it. One is you want to have your structure and your narrative, like what's the story, what's going to happen, what's the beginning, the middle, and the end. Next, if it's a level marked answer, and to get into those top levels, you need to include a variety of different techniques, a variety of different punctuation, and a variety of different sentence structures. So to the side of your plan, I would have a little checklist of all the things you need to include to be getting those top level marks. So it's stuff like alliteration. So I'm starting everything with the same word. So the beautiful blue ocean blinked at the sun. You want to be using some onomatopoeia. So bang, crash, sizzle. Sizzle is that was the best. That was the best onomatopoeia word in that selection. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Assonance. That's when the internal vowels rhyme. We love a bit of assonance. Sibilance. That's when everything begins with S. It can be quite sinister. Sinister sibilance. So these are the kind of techniques you want to be noting down, and that you want to be including in your answer. Vary your sentence structure, have some longer sentences and have some shorter sentences that can be very impactful. You can maybe even have some monosyllabic words in there. So that's when there's a one syllable that can be quite hitting. Other tips and tricks, you want to be appealing to this, think about the senses. You want to evoke emotions in the reader. So like, what can you smell? What can you hear? What can you taste? Those are the kind of things you want to be doing to evoke emotions. So again, those are some nice key terms: alliteration, sibilance, and assonance. So other things you want to use is emotive language. Loving the little juxtaposition. The burning cold is a juxtaposition. Really like it. That can be a very effective technique. Also, you can also have like a nice oxymoron. So that's when two things that contradict each other. Emotive language, again, you want to be appealing to the reader's sense of emotion. So again, you want to use language associated with emotions. A nice thing also, if you're using adjective, you can use a group of 3. That can be quite an effective way. So don't describe something as like just happy. It was happy, effervescent, and great. Maybe use better adjectives than that, but you know what I mean. Metaphors are also really good, very emotive. And you can even have an extended metaphor throughout it. So maybe like army extended metaphors are quite common and quite useful. Similarly, that's an easy thing to try and get in because you just have to use the word like. So I am hungry like the wolf, which is a Duran Duran song, which you probably don't know, but my mom loves them, so it's fine. So simile is when you use that word like or as, very easy way to get a simile into your answer. And it can be a good way to evoke emotion. And then personification, that involves you give human characteristics to something that's not human. So if we take the example of our gong, we can be like, oh, what an animated, happy gong. The gong is not a person, even though I feel like the gong has feelings. So someone asks, what is alliteration? So alliteration is when you have 2 words that start with the same letter. So a cool cucumber is something like alliteration. And personification, that's what's on the screen now. So that's what, personification is when you give something human characteristics, when it's not human. And yes, the words have to be next to each other or like just next to each other. Like bold and beautiful would be alliteration, even though there's an and in between them. Loving the Gordon the Gong, that is a great example of some alliteration right up in here. Thanks, Hugo. So that's what you want to be doing. And I would say, someone asked about timing. Yes, I would say 45 minutes on question 5. What I like to do sometimes is I recommend when you get into the exam, maybe just have like a cheeky little look at section B to see what the question is. And then when you're answering questions 1 to 4, you can be having a think about, oh, like what am I going to write? What ideas am I going to have? That could be a good way to do it. Okay. So so again, get those techniques in, vary that sentence structure, using a simile, so that's using like or as, really easy way to get in there. And metaphor, comparing something to saying something is something else. Okay, so and breathe. How's everyone doing? Keep the questions coming in. I will do my best to try and follow on the chat. But in terms of so pathetic fallacy, that is when something like the weather matches the mood. So if it's like, say you're writing a really, say something really sad happens in your story, you would be like, so let's say, I don't know, you have like a fight with your friend, and then it starts raining and there's thunder everywhere. That is when the narrative of the story matches the surroundings and the weather and the stuff that's going on. That's pathetic fallacy. Sibilance, that's like alliteration, but everything begins with an S. So like the sickening snake snuck, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean. Again, so another thing to talk about, as well as using these techniques, you want to be using a variety of different what's the word, like punctuation. So I saw someone shout out ellipsis. That is great. An ellipsis, it builds tension. See, I just used one. If we were writing down what Jono was saying, ... that would have been an ellipsis. I love it. If you are writing a list at any point, you can start a list with a colon. Use a colon that examiner's going to love you. It's going to be like, yeah, they're using a colon. I love this. A semicolon is something that links to sentences, so you can use it in place of a full stop sometimes. So that's another good way to get in there. Someone asked about what an extended metaphor is. So that's when you like keep the metaphor going, right? So it's like you're on like a cute little racetrack and you keep on going. So if we take this example, the wolf was a wind. So that is a metaphor because we're saying something is something else. You'd say the wolf was a wind and the wolf swept through the forest because wind sweeps, right? So that's an extended metaphor because you keep on describing the wolf with adjectives that are normally attributed to wind, okay? So again, the wolf was howling. Again, howling is also what the wind does. So that's how you use an extended metaphor. So you just like, you pick your metaphor and you stick with it, you make it work. Using more than one exclamation mark at the end of the question, I would, maybe once you could do it, but I wouldn't do it more than once or twice because it's, I don't know, it can just seem like a lot. Paragraphs of question 4, so it's 20 marks, question 4. So you're looking for a good, like, I would say you want it to be like an essay, so an introduction, then maybe 3 paragraphs of text and a conclusion would be my advice. In terms of when to use a colon, you can use a colon whenever you're starting a list. So you can be like, there were 3 things that the man feared, colon, snakes, pterodactyls, and aardvarks. Strange combination of things, but that's just a creative story. So again, whenever you're using a list, get one of those colons in there. We love it. Coming up with a story on the spot, that's why it's good to read the section B question before you go and do section A, because then you just have a bit of time to think about what's going to come up. So in terms of structuring question 5, again, just think of it, it's not like a traditional essay. You want to be thinking of it as a narrative where there is a transition. So try and think of a beginning, middle, and an end, and maybe even try and think of like some kind of structure in that. So a good way is maybe try and start and finish in the same place. That's a good circular narrative structure. Examiners love that. And don't be afraid to use your imagination. Paragraph structure for each question, that's gone over, and we did a predicted paper run through in a previous video in the bio, so check that out. Yes, question 5 is like the start of a story. Yep. Again, yeah, base it loosely on a film. I had one friend when I did my GCSEs a million years ago, she based her answer on Avatar and she got an A, she did great. So again, don't be afraid to like draw influences from other areas. So the difference between description and a story, a description is just when you're like, the table is like, okay, I'll describe the room I'm in. 1, it is really hot in here. I hope you appreciate this. You probably can't see, but I am sweating a lot because the AC is broken in the building, hence my water. So the description would be, I am in a small room and there is a black table and there is a gong, okay? So that's a description. A story is something like, let's say, Jono is trapped in the room and all he has for sustenance is a glass of water and a really sad gong. He doesn't know how he's going to get out. Where's he going to go? Is someone going to walk past and help him? He doesn't know. Okay, so that's a description. You're just saying what's in front of you. A story, you're creating some kind of like, something is happening. And when in doubt, I would say just try and think of ways of like, think about the senses, think about taste, smell, sound, all of those things that are going on that can create an image. Keep all your questions coming in. We've got another few minutes left. But I'd say takeaways for this one, remember to have a good story structure. And you also want to have like a cute little like list of techniques you want to use in the exam. So you get your alliteration in there, get those similes in there. Do we want a metaphor? Yeah, we do. Maybe you want a circular narrative, who knows? Like, think about that, vary your punctuation, keep those colons coming in. So paragraph, I'd say someone was asking about paragraphs for question 2. So for question 2 is an 8 marker, and you want to be making about 4 points. You want to make 4 points, and I would say a paragraph for each point, and use that structure of like, give your point, what point are you making? what is the example and evidence, evaluate it. The writer used this language technique because it had X effect on the reader. Great way to structure it, and then link it back to the question, okay? And we get marks for including theories, e.g. feminists would agree with the statement. Great question from Tomorrow, also hey. So I think that can be a nice addition to that can be a nice evaluation point if it's relevant to include like a feminist's opinion on it. So when I say 4 paragraphs, they don't have to be long, just 4 sentences. And it's better to write a lot about a little, so make sure you really evaluate those points. So you can include humor, but careful on, yeah, that's good advice, Megan. Include some humor, but careful on the topic. You never know who's going to be marking your exam, honey. So like, don't be too controversial. Again, paragraphs of question 3, it's quite similar to question 2. It's an 8 marker. So you want to have 4 points and 1 smallish paragraph per point. So just think about having 4 points, and sometimes if 2 of those points work really well together, boom, mash them in the same paragraph, have 3 paragraphs, okay? So we are getting towards the end of this live stream. Oh, I don't know what, something weird just came on my screen. Don't know what that was. You guys were like so engaged and so interactive with the questions. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It makes these a lot of fun to do. And I hope that everything goes well tomorrow. And we haven't decided on the live streams we're doing tomorrow, so keep your requests coming in. Comment on the video below and chuck us some messages on Insta, and the most popular ones is what we'll do for the live streams tomorrow. Subscribe to keep updated on all the live streams we're doing. And again, guys, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come to this, and hopefully it was a useful run through of how to structure the questions. Okay, last question. So I wouldn't, as long as you're not like super obviously referencing a book or a film, you're not necessarily going to lose marks. You just might not get a lot of, it might be really obvious if you're like, I was on a ship and then it went down like the Titanic, and then you just write about the Titanic. That's not going to go down well, but maybe be inspired by the emotions in it. Best of luck, everybody. If you can't get enough of this stream, in the bio there's a link to a predicted paper run through where we go over a top level answer in full from this paper. So check that out for some last minute tips and tricks. Best of luck for the exam tomorrow. I hope it goes really well. And one more down, boom, boom, boom. And as ever, any other questions you have, hit me up. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the live streams. I'll let you know which ones we're doing. Keep the requests coming in, and the most popular ones, boom, they will get wrong. Oh, that was a loud one. Jono's gonna get in trouble. Okay, bye, and good luck.